One of the popular news threads on social media a few days ago was the supermoon. Were you aware of that? It is when the moon is the closest to Earth in distance. So it is the biggest we see. And thankful to those people who braved themselves out in the cold to bother taking a photo, I was able to enjoy them inside our living room, swiping down the screen. Among many, this one caught my attention. And this photo is credited to Keegan Wilson, who is a photographer and also a student at St. Michael's College. And I'm not exactly sure which words to describe the awe that I was experiencing from this photo, but I was sure that the single adjective wasn't enough to describe the reason I stopped and pondered for a long while. Perhaps the pondering was happening somewhere between the locality of the scene on the interstate and the beyondness of the supermoon. Whatever the exact words could have been, it brought my attention back to God that was described in Isaiah 40. God sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and his people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. If our world is relatively pleasant, we might want to cheer for this powerful and mighty description of God. If our society is relatively peaceful, these words might be easier to sing. If our personal lives were relatively abundant, we might be assured by the implications God must be with us. But who was the first hearers of this poem? The first hearers of this poem were those in exile in Babylon. For them, they were living in a painful reality. They were forced from their homes. They were scattered as their temple, their spiritual home, was destroyed. They became refugees, leaving behind the very land that was once called the Promised Land between them and God. They wept every day by the rivers of Babylon, longing for Jerusalem. They were the powerless for their society. There were plenty of reasons, more than plenty of reasons, for them to be distracted from God. There were plenty of reasons for them to conclude that the gods of Babylon were stronger than their God. There were plenty of reasons for them to conclude that God really doesn't exist at all. But the words from the Isaiah 40 challenge those in exile and those of us who are always exposed to these type of distractions in life. Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord. My cause is disregarded by my God. And which is followed by the refrain, do you not know? Have you not heard? Do you not know? Have you not heard? Perhaps, as one of the commentary notes, the message to us this morning is that the meaning of life is not often revealed atop a mountain on a starry night. Perhaps as we try to ponder the unearthly scene of the supermoon behind the winter camel's hump, all we can conclude is, it's all too much. Perhaps that is the point. We are the grasshoppers We are the weak to God. We are tired and weary, who stumble and fail. And at the end of each day, we lay ourselves in bed, confused. This past week, supermoon wasn't the only news that filled our days. There was the State of the Union address by the President, followed by the commentaries after commentaries about what was and what was not said at the address. Broadcasting to the nation, the contrast who give standing ovation versus those who remain seated. This past week, there were more going on between the President and the FBI. And there we go, more unfriending of our friends list. This past week, for those of us who are on Montpelier's Front Porch Forum, may have seen this, but when an 11-year-old was waiting at a crosswalk in Montpelier, a car full of teenagers yelled at her, "Brown people don't belong in this country. Get out." A few days later, the same 11-year-old experienced another incident. The teenagers driving by shouting, "I told you to get out of the United States, brown girl." And of course, there were some comments of support, as well as some criticism targeting the activist mentality. Again, we return to our homes and to our children confused, lost in words to describe the scene before our eyes. But the words of Isaiah 40, verse 28 tells us that God's understanding is unsearchable. We will never fully understand how God works in the world, why suffering continues and evil reigns in so many places. And God's understanding is not likely to be revealed to us by a supersized moon. This brings our attention to the theme of our worship today. Focus. Focus. Then how can we understand our God? How can we maintain our focus with our God? Steve Jobs, the famous CEO, once said, "People think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there are. You have to pick carefully. I'm actually as proud of the things we haven't done as the things I have done. Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things." Obviously, we're not necessarily talking about being innovative today, but I think this idea can also be applied to when it comes to our spiritual focus. In order to focus on God, the question is, what are the things that we need to say no to? What are the distractions that stand between us and God? In this time and age, when our technology allows us to have the world in our palms, we might want to take a moment to think about this. Aren't we trying to escape the stress, escape the confusion, by replacing it with another thing, another news, or a cute video of puppies? For me, it's more of a food channel that distracts me. Or is that why we look forward to watch the Super Bowl tonight? Allows us to escape our hardship for a second. Maybe momentarily. And we need those. I'm not denying the importance of those brief smiles. But relying our lives on those moments, relying fully on them, doesn't bring our focus to God. Instead, we come to know how God works in the world through the years of living with God. and living with God's people. Focusing on the years of exploring, seeking, reflecting, and acting with God. A lifetime. Over time, through studying together, worshiping together, breaking the bread together, being in service together to the world, we come to a place of knowing God's ways. Even it is not the awesome scene of supermoon behind Camel's helmet, when we don't have the exact words to describe them. The good news is this. When our anxiety and frustration pulls us further and further away from each other, when our world is filled with labels, judgments, and pointing fingers, when the world seems to get distracted by some memos, we tend to forget our story with God. And that was exactly what was happening to the people of Babylonian exile. They forgot about their own story with their loving God, because they had forgotten their questioning the presence and the power of this God. And God is speaking through the prophet to them and to us today. Hope may be hard to sustain. But if we depend on God and wait and stay focused in our own story, our own experience at the table, our own relationship with God, before our desire to explain everything with our knowledge, we will receive the ability not just to escape or replace with something else, but to meet the challenges and, indeed, to rise above them. And I'll end with the last few words from the scripture reading today. God gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youth grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint.